All right, what's going on, guys? So I'm kind of trying something new here. I have a lot of fun making rosters and PowerPoints and spreadsheets and stuff, and well, I like the NFL, so I made a an entire PowerPoint about what quarterback rooms are going to look like in 2023, and I'm gonna post it on here because why not? I had a lot of fun with it, and there's a lot of information in there, and maybe somebody else will like it too. All right, so we're starting with the Philadelphia Eagles, the reigning NFC champions. So obviously they have Jalen Hurts. He was a complete and utter beast last year. He proved everybody wrong that doubted him, and he is their starter for the foreseeable future. So he's there, and then they recently lost their O coordinator, but they're switching to Brian Johnson, who was, I believe, he was their quarterback coach anyway. So I don't think much is going to really change. But their backup quarterback situation, they have Gardner Minshew currently, but Gardner Minshew is, I think he's going to be looking for a potential starting spot or where he could at least be a bridge quarterback to prove himself. And I don't think he sees the Eagles as a realistic opportunity for that to happen with Jalen Hurts there. So I think he's going to move on if he gets that opportunity. And we'll talk about him later, but I think he will. Um, and then they, of course, have Ian Book as their third string quarterback. I don't see any reason for them to really move on from him. I believe they signed him. They either signed him to a futures deal or he's still on contract. I don't remember, but either way, he's in the quarterback room now anyway. But I don't think he's ready to take the leap to be the backup quite yet. So I think they're going to be looking around trying to find a vet just in case Jalen goes down because he does a lot of running. You never know when that will force an injury, basically. So I think I looked around and I saw Taylor Heineke from the Commanders, and I think he would be a really good fit in this offense. Um, and he will probably also be looking for a starting role or a bridge quarterback type role, but I just don't. I couldn't find a spot for him that I really liked that he would fit to be that kind of guy. So I thought, I mean, joining the Eagles as a backup quarterback, possibly winning a chip with him next year, I feel like he'd be down for that. And yeah, I think he'd fit Brian Johnson's offense really well, and I think he'd be a great backup behind Jalen Hurts. Now, if we move right along, we get to the Dallas Cowboys, America's team. Um, yeah, so obviously they have Dak Prescott. He's not going anywhere. He's their starting quarterback. And yeah, sure, he struggles in big games, kind of like Kirk Cousins, kind of like Tony Romo before him. But but he's a really good quarterback, and obviously they're not going to change it up right now, at least. After him, however, they did switch O coordinators for whatever reason. They decided to cut Kellen Moore, not cut. They fired Kellen Moore basically, and he joined the Chargers, and they brought up old Schottenheimer to be their new O coordinator. And I believe McCarthy himself is going to be calling the plays. I like totally disagree with that, but that's just me. Maybe they'll be better, honestly, but I really just don't think they will be. I like Kellen Moore a lot, and I think this is going to be a downgrade for the Cowboys offense and for Dak. Um, but if we look at their backup situation, they currently have Cooper Rush and Will Greer. Um, Cooper Rush won like 4 or 5 games or something like that last year as the backup, and he didn't look great, but he did everything he needed to win the games. So that's all you really need for a backup. So he's a good backup, and I think they're going to want him back. However, I also think he is going to want to stick with Kellen Moore because that's who he's been working with, and that's who he's done good under. So why not stick with him? So I have him leaving the Cowboys, and I heard that McCarthy does like Will Greer, and that Will Greer actually almost beat out Cooper Rush in the early stages of last season. So I do believe that they will give Will Greer an opportunity to be the backup quarterback, but I also think they will bring in competition for him. And I was looking at the rest of the free agents around the league, and I came up with P.J. Walker from the Panthers. Now, PJ, he's been around for a little bit. He last year, honestly, he made one of the craziest plays in the league with that giant chuck down the field where he showed that he has a cannon if he needs to use it. And further looking into it, the Cowboys actually have Scott Tolzien as their new quarterbacks coach. And Tolzien actually worked with PJ Walker back when I believe Scott Tolzien was the backup quarterback on the Colts, and PJ Walker was on the practice squad. So they know each other. They have a working relationship. So I thought, yeah, this is a good opportunity for PJ. He knows the guy on the staff. Bring him in, and he can compete with Will Grier to be the backup. And I think that'd be a good quarterback room right there. I honestly don't know who would win this battle either. I personally like Will Grier a lot. I went to WVU, and I met Will Grier. He's a great dude, and I really want him to be the backup quarterback. But PJ Walker's very talented, so this could be a really good quarterback battle for a backup position next year. Moving along, we get to the New York Giants. Now, Daniel Jones is a free agent, but as Joe Shane and Dayball has been telling everybody, they're currently working towards re-signing him right now. Whether that's an extension or a franchise tag, we do not know yet. I know that everyone wants it to be an extension. They're just trying to work on the money situation right now. Daniel Jones just currently he just replaced his agency that's been talking with them. I don't know what that's all about, but hopefully very soon we find out what's going on. Either way, I think he's going to be the Giants starter next year. After him, they have Tyrod Taylor as their main backup. He's still on contract. I don't see any reason for that to change. Their third string quarterback, however, was Davis Webb. Davis Webb actually retired this offseason and joined the Broncos coaching staff as their quarterback coach. So good for him. He's moving up in the coaching world. But that leaves an opening for the Giants. And now, this is kind of ballsy on my part, but I'm going to be honest, I'm a Giants fan, and I'm a huge Hendon Hooker fan. And I just see the perfect opportunity for Hendon Hooker to sit behind these guys, learn, and then as early as next year, depending on what happens with Daniel Jones, he could be starting. Hendon Hooker could be starting. You never know. But I have them drafting Hendon Hooker. It'd probably be at least a third round pick. That's my assumption. Hendon Hooker's a little older. He got hurt. I believe he tore his ACL towards the end of last year, so he's going to miss most of next year probably. There has been word that he's healing quickly, so he could be ready actually for the start of the season, which is big news for him. But the fact that he's older and coming off that injury, teams are going to be scared away. The good news for him is that he was very good last year. He was in the running for the Heisman before he got hurt, so teams are going to definitely look at him. But I think, depending on how everything goes, I think he's going to possibly fall to the third round, and the Giants might scoop him up there. They do have a lot of holes, so they could go in a different direction, but I just love this landing spot, and I think at the very least he could replace Tyrod Taylor next year as the backup quarterback, or be used as trade bait depending on what happens, you know? And the Giants did meet with him too, and apparently they had a great interview with him at the Combine. So we'll see what happens with it. But that's what I have for the Giants. Now we move to the Commanders, and this is I think this is going to be the first team that people might get mad at me for what I put here. It is what it is. The Commanders, they used Carson Wentz, Taylor Heineke, and they even had Sam Howell start a game last year. Now, Taylor Heineke's a free agent. I do think they probably want him back because they seem to really like him, but I just don't think Heineke's gonna come back. They've shown that they don't trust in him as their proven starter, and he's gonna want to go somewhere where he might get more of a chance. So I don't know. I just see him moving on. And Carson Wentz recently got cut. He was probably the most obvious cut candidate in the entire league. So it is what it is. He struggled, but they still have Sam Howell, and they've been talking him up all throughout the offseason so far. And I get it. He showed quite a bit in college, and even in that one game that he started last year, he showed that he's got stuff to work with. So I understand why they're talking him up, but at the same time, every offseason we see these quarterbacks get talked up like they're going to be the starter right before the team signs a big free agent or drafts a quarterback early. Every single offseason it happens, and this is no different. I think that depending on how the cards fall, they would be comfortable throwing Sam Howell out there, but at the same time, Riverboat Ron, his job is kind of on the line next year, right? So there's no way in my mind that he's going to go with just Sam Howell and hope that it works out. He's going to bring somebody else in. Now, he did bring in Eric Bieniemy from the Chiefs, which is a great hire in my opinion. He replaces Scott Turner, North Turner's kid. I think that's a huge upgrade. I love Eric Bieniemy. I do not understand why he's not a head coach yet. If Matt Nagy can get a head coaching gig after a few years, why is Eric Bieniemy, after 2 Super Bowl wins and another Super Bowl appearance, and like five years or so as the O coordinator? I get that he didn't call plays, but did Nagy? Like, what are we doing here? I don't get it. He should be a head coach. But anyway, I think it's a great hire, and I think he's going to be looking around the league trying to find his Pat Mahomes for the Commanders. Now, I also think he'll look at Sam Howell and see the tools he has and be like, oh, this guy could be a guy. But he's going to want to bring somebody else in too. Um, and I was looking around the league, and for some reason, I saw Jameis Winston on the Saints, and I saw him, and I was like, Eric Bieniemy could coach this guy up, and we've seen Jameis be good. We've seen him be really bad too, but we've seen him throw a lot of touchdowns, throw a lot of good passes. He has a cannon. He can move with his legs a little bit. He can basically do it all. It's just his mentality. That's what gets him. He throws such bad passes sometimes. I don't know if it's a problem reading the field or what, but I think he kind of got the short end of the stick last year in New Orleans. When they benched him because he had that back injury, and then they just wouldn't let him back in. Andy Dalton was starting over him the whole time. It was a little messed up, and I want to see him start next year. I think he deserves it. I think he's got the qualities to be a starter, and I saw the Commanders as a great opportunity for both parties involved. I think they would definitely go into the season with Jameis and Sam Howell in a quarterback battle, but I don't see Sam Howell winning that battle. I think Jameis would win that, and that's what I put here. And then for the third guy, I have Bieniemy bring in Shane Buechele along from the Chiefs. And Buechele could help the other guys learn the new offense, and I don't think he would be the backup. And maybe the Chiefs would want to re-sign him to battle for a backup spot, but he's a free agent, and I just saw an opportunity for him, so here he is. Now let's switch gears a little bit. We're going to go ahead and head off to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And yeah, Bucs fans might be mad at me for this one too. But yeah, I was looking at the Bucs, and Tom Brady obviously retired. He's gone. Their backup Blaine Gabbert's a free agent. I don't see him coming back. Maybe if they still had Byron Leftwich, he'd be back, but they don't. I think he's gone. They have Kyle Trask on the roster, and now they've been talking up Kyle Trask, but he is very unproven. He hasn't started a single game, and he's looked up and down in the preseason. He's got a cannon for an arm. He could be a starter, but he's so unproven. And I've heard people talking about the Bucs being a possible candidate to kind of like tank next year, sell the field and tank, reset. But I just don't understand that. I don't see that happening. Why? I don't see their ownership keeping Todd Bowles around if they lose a bunch of games next year. I don't see it happening. I don't think Todd Bowles has the luxury of tanking. And I don't think he's going to want to go into next year with just Kyle Trask. So I think he's going to look around the league and try to find a vet. He could go to the draft, potentially, but I have him looking at free agency more. I don't think the draft's going to work out for him. You never know, but I have him looking at free agency. The first thing I see happening is their current O coordinator that replaced Byron Leftwich. I think his name's Dave Canales. He was the Seahawks QB coach, I believe. And I was looking at the Seahawks and I was like, well, Drew Lock kind of makes sense to come over to the Bucks. I could see him following Canales over. He's kind of like he's kind of like a Kyle Trask type. He's a tall white dude, big arm. Both of them can move a little bit in the pocket. Not really rushers, but they can move around a little bit. They're not Tom Brady. Um, and even if you look at their pictures there, they even kind of have the same like smile there a little bit. But but anyway, I think they could have a good battle. But then I was looking around a little more, and I Baker Mayfield just he's just a guy that has this sort of it factor, you know? I get it. He's had a lot of bad games, a lot of bad seasons, but he's had a lot of good ones too. And he's just got a fiery personality that I think wins coaches over. And I think he's going to be visiting a bunch of teams in the offseason, trying to find a little starting gig for himself. And I just think he could go in, meet Todd Bowles and that offense, and I think he could really win the staff over. And they could bring him in and really believe that with their current offense that they could win games with Baker Mayfield. And so I have them signing him. I have them signing Baker Mayfield. Now I don't think they'll just straight up give it to him. I think with these three in the QB room, I think they would have a giant quarterback battle, three-way quarterback battle, and anyone could win it. To be honest, I know they like Kyle Trask a lot, so he could win it. Drew Lock does have a big arm. He started quite a few games. He's got a little experience. He could win it. But I just don't see either of them with Baker has so much more experience, and he's such a fiery guy. I think he'd win over the offense, and I just think he would win that quarterback competition. So I got him starting for Tampa Bay. Now, I don't know if he would last as the starter because, I mean, like I said, he has some really bad games sprinkled in. He always does. It's just who he is. He honestly might be a better backup one day, but as of right now, he's definitely going to be trying to get a starting gig, and I think Tampa Bay could give it to him. But we'll probably end up seeing Kyle Trask at some point too. Who knows? Moving along, we're heading to Carolina with the Carolina Panthers. Now, Panthers fans might be mad at me for this one too. It is what it is. But they totally reset last year. They have Frank Reich in the building. He hired Thomas Brown from the Rams, and Ejiro Evero. They look really good, honestly, coaching staff wise. They just got to figure it out on the field. Now, I think they're going to reset pretty much their whole QB room. They had Sam Darnold, P.J. Walker. Baker was there. He's obviously gone. P.J. Walker, for sure, I think is gone. There's been talks about them re-signing Sam Darnold, but I just don't see why they would do that. Like, he has some good tangibles, and he's got the arm, but he's proven that he's like not very good. He hasn't been good, like ever, in the league. Like he's had some okay field manager games, but that's about it. He looks more like a backup quarterback than anything to me. I don't think the Panthers are going to re-sign him. I think they're going to totally reset. They have Matt Corral on the roster. He's not going anywhere. But other than that, total reset. Now, this is a spot where Matt Corral, they actually haven't really, at least I haven't seen them really talking about him as the possible starting quarterback, which kind of surprises me. I thought it'd be more like a Sam Howell situation where they're talking him up, but they're not. So I think that makes it pretty obvious that they're going to be trying to add a couple guys to this quarterback room for competition. Now, I did look at the Rams because they have Thomas Brown, and they could add one of their backups. I highly doubt they would bring Baker back. But they did have they had those other two backups that played a couple games, but they looked so bad last year. I don't see the Panthers looking at them and viewing them as, guys that they want to bring in. So I have him looking at other guys. Now, Frank Reich knows a lot of quarterbacks in the league now. But the main two I was looking at for him, the first guy I looked at was actually Nick Foles from for the Colts. He was a backup quarterback. The problem with Nick Foles, he looked so bad last year when he did play. And yeah, he might be better under Frank Reich. But then I also read an article where Nick Foles was talking about like his career, and honestly, it kind of just sounds like he's ready for retirement. I think there's a good chance he might not sign with anybody and then retire shortly before the season starts or something like that. I think there's a good chance that happens. So I didn't go with Nick Foles. I did, in fact, go with Carson Wentz, though. And I get it. He got canned by Frank Reich before for the Colts. He got kicked off the roster. But the thing is, he didn't play bad. They didn't win the amount of games they wanted to, but if you go look at the stats and go look at how the Colts were, they were way better with him than they were with Matt Ryan this year. And his stats weren't even that bad. So I think the Panthers could view Carson Wentz. They could bring him in, and I think both Carson Wentz and Frank Reich and the Panthers would both kind of view this as like you're going to be like a 1 year type quarterback here. Um, he's going to basically hold the fort down for this year while they work on a different option. And I think Carson Wentz would actually be okay with that because at this point that's what he's been. He went from the Eagles to the Colts to the Commanders. Now, I just think he knows that like this is who I am. Like he's got great intangibles. He's a good quarterback. He makes really bad decisions. I think he's really streaky, I think is what it is. Because I think it's all in his head. He just plays so badly for spurts at a time. But yeah, I think he would work in this Panthers offense for like the first year. And they could sign him, bring him in as the starter. Have Matt Corral learning under him because he's young. He missed his whole rookie season. He's basically going to be a rookie. And then I also have them drafting a quarterback high in Anthony Richardson. I think Frank Reich would absolutely love Anthony Richardson and Thomas Brown. Anthony Richardson, he's extremely raw. That's his problem. He was even raw in college. Like it was a little surprising that he came out for the draft. But he has like everything you want in a quarterback, a young quarterback. And I think he would be great if they drafted him early, sat him, and had Carson Wentz play, and have Matt Corral learn it. Matt Corral could be the backup. I think that'd be a great quarterback room. Now, the Panthers could go in a totally different direction. I know they met with Derek Carr. They could definitely go the Derek Carr route. And who knows, they could even trade up with the Bears and draft like Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud. You never know. But this is what I have for them, and I like it. I think this is definitely something that they could do. Now we move to the New Orleans Saints. So the Saints had mostly Andy Dalton last year with a little Jameis Winston sprinkled in. Jameis Winston is currently on their roster still. Andy Dalton's a free agent, and they've been talking about possibly re-signing him. But I look at the Saints and Dennis Allen, and I see a team that can't get it wrong next year. Or Dennis Allen and that whole coaching staff is getting fired. That's what I see. So I don't think they really believe that Andy Dalton can save their jobs. So I think Andy Dalton walks. And then Jameis Winston, they proved last year that they don't trust in him. So I think he's getting cut at some point. He might be a late cut. They save more money if they cut him in June. But in this situation, I have them signing Derek Carr. They were the only team that showed an extreme amount of interest in trading for him. Now, obviously, that fell apart. And according to some reports, it was because they told him that he needed to take a pay cut to go with the Saints, which is not a good sign. Not a good sign, because Derek Carr does not need to take a pay cut to go anywhere. Somebody's going to sign him for a lot of money. I think the Saints are gonna. I think the Saints are gonna look at the roster. They're gonna look at what they want and who's available, and they're gonna be like, okay, we need to chop some of these contracts on our roster so that we can bring Derek Carr in. And I think that's exactly what they're gonna do. I think Derek Carr would be fine with it too. You know, he might go to the Panthers, he might go to the Jets. You don't know, or some other team that shows interest. But I think the Saints have shown the most interest, and I think that's where he's going to end up. Um, Backup situation, honestly, this one was kind of just I was looking at veteran quarterbacks around the league, and I came up with Blaine Gabbert. That's just just kind of what happened. You know, I don't think anyone's going to give Blaine Gabbert a lot of money. I think he basically knows that he's a backup at this point in his career, and I think if the Saints offered him a decent contract to be their backup, I think he'd be fine going there. And I think they could see Blaine Gabbert and be like, well, you know, he was on the Bucks. They changed their offense, but you know, maybe he could give us a little tips and pointers when we play them. So I don't know. It fit. It might not happen. There's not really anything that connects him to the team, but that's who I went with. And then I believe that's Jake Luton, right? Let me make sure real quick. Yeah, Jake Luton. He's their third string guy. I believe they signed him to a futures deal. So yeah, he's sticking around as their third string guy. He knows the offense already, so why not? So yeah, that's New Orleans for me. And now we're moving to Atlanta. Atlanta could go in a variety of different ways. I've seen Lamar Jackson get traded to the Falcons in what some people are saying. So they could draft somebody. They could sign a big vet. They could go with Desmond Ritter. Who knows? They could do a multitude of things. But the thing is, I think their coach is kind of running out of time here. This is going to be his third year as the head coach. He proved that he was, you know, a really good offensive mind when he was on the Titans, and he's done some cool things since he got to the Falcons. You know, Cordero Patterson exploded out of nowhere, but he's really got to start turning it around and winning more games this year, I think, or he's going to be on the hot seat. And they've been talking up Desmond Ritter a lot, and I think it's kind of more like a Sam Howell situation. Like, sure, they might end up going with him if worse comes to worse for him, but I think they basically have to add somebody to at least compete with him. And I think that's what they're going to be trying to do. And I do think they're going to be looking at veteran quarterbacks. They haven't really been linked to Derek Carr as far as I saw, but I could see that as a landing spot for him. But like I said, they haven't really been linked to him, so I'm not really sure what they're thinking right now, other than maybe they're looking at the draft. I could see that, even though they just drafted Desmond Ritter. But he wasn't a high pick. I think it was like a fourth round, maybe third round pick. I think it was fourth round. But but yeah, so I have them looking at the draft. I have them looking high in the draft. They miss out on the first couple guys, but I think Arthur Smith would really like Will Levis from Kentucky. I really do. Will Levis, he's got pretty much everything you want. He's got the arm. He can run around. He's made huge throws and won big games in his college career. And he's a little older. He's a little smarter, so he might be able to start right away. And I think Arthur Smith will see all that and be like, "This is a guy that I can insert into this offense and watch it explode." I think that he really would believe that. So I have them drafting him, and I think they will probably have an open competition between Will Levis and Desmond Ritter. But Will Levis is just so talented. Not that Desmond Ritter isn't. He has talent too. But there's a reason why Will Levis is going to be a first round pick this year, and Desmond Ritter wasn't last year, you know? So I think Will Levis wins that battle outright and starts day one for the Falcons next year. They also have Logan Woodside. He's their third string quarterback. He was their backup quarterback last year, and I think they'll keep him around. He came over from the Titans, so they already know him. He knows the system real well. They like him. He probably sticks around as their third guy. But yeah, Will Levis from Kentucky. Now let's switch it up. We're going to head to Minnesota. Now, Minnesota obviously has Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins, he's really good quarterback. Every single year, he's really good, but every single year, he fails to bring them through the big games. He, you know, he's never really won those big games. It's just who he is, and I'm not sure if it's nerves. I'm not sure if it's bad luck, but it's just every year it's proven that he's not going to get them over the hump. So he's obviously going to be their starting quarterback next year, and they have Nick Mullins currently as their backup. I think they like Nick Mullins. I don't see any reason for them to really let him walk. I think they'll re-sign Nick Mullins, but I also think that they're going to look at the draft and kind of want to bring somebody in the draft. Now let me make sure that this is who I think it is. Yeah, it is. Okay. Yeah, I think they're going to look at the draft, and um, I can see their coach, Kevin O'Connell. I can see him looking at Tanner Mackey and Tanner Mackey. I think it's Mackey. I can see him looking at this guy and being like, okay, this is my starting quarterback. O'Connell and Mackey. I think he sees a guy. He's this huge quarterback. He's got a big arm. He's kind of a statue in the pocket. He's kind of like an old school quarterback. Like if it was like 10 years ago, he would be first overall pick for sure type guy. He's like Eli Manning back there. But he's smart. He makes big throws. He sees the field really well because he's huge, and I think he could. I think O'Connell could see this guy and be like, okay, we'll bring him in, third round pick or whatever. He can sit behind. He can like battle with Nick Mullins maybe to be the backup year one. But if he learns well enough, and if Kirk still shows that he can't win the big games, maybe next year we move on. We trade away Kirk, and Tanner Mackey's going to be our guy. I could see him thinking that, and I think he could really pull the trigger on Mackey and bring him in to be that guy. So it was kind of quick, but that's what I see for the Vikings room. Moving on to the Detroit Lions. They were like the star team last year. They came out of nothing. Everybody loved Dan Campbell. The Lions were finally winning games, and then last minute they didn't make it in, unfortunately. I think they lost to the Raiders or something that basically knocked them out. But yeah, Lions, Jared Goff. They have shown that they absolutely love Jared Goff. He works for their system. He's the perfect quarterback for Dan Campbell and perfect quarterback for this offense. He came over in that Stafford trade. Everybody was just thinking he was getting left out for the dead. He was he was just part of the Matt Stafford trade. He wasn't going to really be the starter, but he's proven himself, and I am so happy for him because he's a gritty quarterback. He's exactly what knee-biting Dan Campbell wants in a quarterback. Like, if you remember the Rams, I think it might have been their Super Bowl run. It was the last year that Goff was on the Rams. Whatever they ended up doing that year. They might have lost to, I don't remember, but I remember Jared Goff had that thumb injury where he was like wincing in pain every time he threw the ball, and they were trotting out the Rams, their backup quarterback at the time. The backup played like one snap, and then Goff comes back in with his busted up thumb. He's like, I'm gonna come out and I'm gonna win this game, and I'm pretty sure if I remember right, he did. And that's the kind of guy that Dan Campbell wants and loves. So I think he's perfect for the Lions. I don't think they're going to try to replace him anymore. I don't think they're going to be looking at quarterbacks in the draft. I think they love who they have, and that's who they're sticking with. Their backup quarterback is where the problem comes in. Because last year they had Blau and Tim something. They had their quarterback battle. Both of them lost. They ended up cutting both of them before the season. And they ended up going with Nate Sudfeld as their backup, who, I mean, there's nothing really wrong with Sudfeld. He's just very unproven. I don't think he's played at all. Or no, he did play that one game back when he got the Eagles coach fired because they started him over Jalen Hurts. But other than that, and he didn't play good in that game. So other than that, he's very unproven. I think they're going to be looking for a veteran backup just in case Goff goes down. And I was looking around the league, and one cheap option I found was Browns free agent quarterback Mason Rudolph. Rudolph's definitely not going back to the Browns. He was, or sorry, Steelers quarterback. Um, Rudolph's definitely not going back to the Steelers. I read an article somewhere that he was basically pissed that Trubisky and Pickett were both starting over him when he viewed himself as a better quarterback than both of them last year, which, I mean, yeah, he's obviously going to believe in himself. He's a quarterback, he should. But if you look at Trubisky and Pickett and Rudolph, if you look at their stats and you watch them play, honestly, I can kind of see what Rudolph's talking about. Trubisky was not good last year. Pickett was a rookie, and he struggled. I think Rudolph, honestly, probably could have been better than both of them last year. But he's going to be gone, looking for a backup role or a possible starting role. And I just saw Dan Campbell and the Lions, and I remember Mason Rudolph taking that shot to the head from a helmet by one of the biggest dudes in the NFL in Myles Garrett. And I was like, this is another gritty dude that'll get in your face. He's a Dan Campbell type guy. And I think they could see Mason Rudolph and be like, okay, he can be our backup quarterback. I think he'd come in and just crush Nate Sudfeld for the backup role. I think it would happen. Now, yeah, obviously a lot of people see Mason Rudolph, and he's a guy that we don't like because of the whole Myles Garrett situation, but the fact is he's still a quarterback in the league, and he's proven that he has some skill and capabilities, so he's going to get a shot somewhere. And I think the Lions is a good spot for him. All right. Back at it. Yeah, next we got the Packers. So the Packers are obviously like one of the biggest teams in the quarterback market right now because we don't know what's going on with Aaron Rodgers. Now, Rodgers is done with his darkness retreat, but he still hasn't made up his mind. Now, he says he's not going to drag it on, blah, 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 blah. We'll find out soon enough what's going to happen here, but to me, it sounds like both Aaron Rodgers and the Packers are pretty much done. Like, they've had a great run together. They have a mutual respect for each other, but I think the Packers want to move on from to Jordan Love, and Rodgers, I think, wants to try something new. I think is what's going to get into his head, and I don't think it's going to be retirement. I think he's going to go for a trade, and yeah, so that means he's gone, and they're definitely going to go with Jordan Love. Now, I like Jordan Love. I think he's got a lot of skills, and he's been a little up and down, but we haven't really seen too much of him. I think he could be something special for the Packers, though. So I like him, but I think they're also definitely going to want to bring somebody in just in case it doesn't work out. Now, I was looking around a little bit, and ultimately I came up with Ravens' Tyler Huntley. Pro Bowler. Tyler Huntley, yeah. I don't think the Ravens are going to be able to afford Tyler Huntley. With the Pro Bowl thing, his agents are going to be pushing for more money, and if the Ravens are trying to re-sign Lamar, I don't think they're going to be getting Tyler Huntley back. And Huntley might want to try to go out and find a spot where he might get more of a shot too. But yeah, I think he could be really good in this offense if they're going to Jordan Love. I think he fits the mold a little bit. Love's got a better arm, but Tyler Huntley's he's got the legs. He's quick if you've seen him play, and he's had some bad games, but he's had some really good games too. And I think with the Packers, he could be good. And if Jordan Love struggles, Tyler Huntley might get to go in and prove himself there. And then of course they have Danny Etling. I believe they signed him to a futures deal, so he's still going to be there for the third QB. Moving on, we're going to go to the Bears, Chicago. Now the Bears. There's been rumors about them trying to ship, or not trying to, but talking about possibly trading Justin Fields and grabbing a new quarterback with the first pick. That makes literally zero sense to me. I think they're probably just trying to make the first overall pick more valuable, even though it's already the most valuable pick. If they're not entirely sure they're going to trade it or not, that pushes the value up. So I think that's probably what they're doing there. I have no doubt in my mind Justin Fields is going to be back as the QB next year. He looked really good in the second half of last year, and I think he could look he could be really good next year, depending on what they put together for him on offense. Their backup quarterback situation is the problem. Right now they have Trevor Siemian and Nathan Peterman. Nathan Peterman is a free agent. I don't think he's going to be back. He wasn't all that great when they put him in there. Granted, the Bears don't have a lot to work with, but Peterman just isn't something special. And Trevor Siemian, he's still on contract. He got hurt, and they moved away from him. And plus they'll save a lot of money if they cut him. So I just think I think they're gonna get rid of both of them and reset their whole backup situation. They don't even fit, they don't fit Justin Fields' they don't fit his style. Like, why are they his backups? Doesn't make sense to me. So I think they're going to go out. They're going to try to find a vet. Justin Fields is still young. He could use somebody to help him out with learning everything. Granted, he's been around for a little bit, so he's probably pretty adjusted at this point. But it's still good to have a vet behind him. And I was looking around, and Marcus Mariota recently got cut from the Falcons. I think he's definitely going to be trying to look for a spot where he can play, but I don't think he's going to find that, especially after last year. So I think the Bears and Justin Fields' backup makes a lot of sense for Marcus Mariota, so I have him moving into that position. And then third string, I have him looking at the draft, and there's this guy Dorian Thompson Robinson. He's really quick. He's like unpolished. He needs a lot of coaching up for the NFL level, but I think they could either draft him 6th, 7th round, or he could be undrafted and they could pick him up even. But I think he makes a lot of sense as a third string type guy behind Fields and Mariota, and he could be a guy that they keep along, and he eventually takes Mariota's spot as the backup. I could see that happening. Next, we got the San Francisco 49ers. Now, the 49ers are going to have one of the best training camp quarterback battles in the entire NFL, probably the best one next year, between Trey Lance and Brock Purdy. Jimmy Garoppolo is gone. They've said as much. They tried to get rid of him last year. Brock Purdy is basically a better version of Jimmy Garoppolo for the 49ers, and Jimmy G would be more expensive. He's gone. There's literally no reason he would ever be re-signed here. So he's gone. They have Trey Lance and Brock Purdy battling it out. Now, Brock Purdy obviously proved himself last year. He's young, but he proved that he is like almost a perfect fit in the Kyle Shanahan system. He's smart. He knows where to go with the ball. He can move on his feet a little bit. His arm's not amazing, but he can make like any throw that they wanted to make. So he is a great option there. But you just got to look at Trey Lance. First of all, they traded multiple firsts to get Trey Lance. He is Kyle Shanahan's hand-picked quarterback. And Trey Lance is so skilled. He is extremely good on his feet. He has a really good arm. He's relatively accurate. The only thing really holding Trey Lance back is that he's inexperienced and he sometimes seems to get kind of lost in the field. So I think this is Trey Lance's job to lose. I think as long as he looks good enough, he will win the job. Now, if he's in training camp throwing picks, Brock Purdy's your guy. But as of right now, I think Trey Lance could make this offense extremely dangerous next year. Now, their third quarterback, Shanahan has been talking about adding a veteran for that position simply because every single year since Kyle Shanahan became their coach, they've had horrible injury luck at the quarterback position. So they're unfortunately a team that just needs a third quarterback that is capable. Now, they do have Josh Johnson from last year. He's a free agent. He's in his, I believe, late 30s, and he got hurt immediately when he went in for the championship game. So I don't think they'll bring him back. I think they're gonna look for a different option. And I was looking around, and honestly, I think Trevor Siemian from the Bears, if he gets cut, which I think will happen, I think he would be a very cheap, experienced option. And if the Niners have to get all the way down to the third string quarterback again, I think Trevor Siemian would be a great third string spot starter. He doesn't have a good arm, but he's smart. He usually makes pretty good decisions, and in Kyle Shanahan's offense, he could win games for sure. So that's what I have for the 49ers. And then after that, we got the Seattle Seahawks. Now, the Seahawks with Pete Carroll, Geno Smith is a free agent, right? But I think pretty much everyone knows he's going to be back. Pete Carroll wants him back. Geno Smith wants to be back. The fans want him back. Everybody loves Geno. I love Geno. He went to West Virginia. He's great. So Geno definitely going to be back, in my opinion. After him, they have Drew Lock currently as their backup. He's a free agent. Pete Carroll loves his backup quarterbacks. If you look at his past, he had Geno Smith for a long time. He had Seneca Wallace for forever. He loves his backup quarterback, and he loves keeping him around. So I'm pretty sure he's going to want to re-sign Drew Lock and keep him as his backup. But they lost their quarterback coach to the Buccaneers, like I explained, and I just think there's a good chance that Drew Lock follows him for an opportunity to start, because he knows he's behind Geno here. He has an opportunity on Tampa. So I have Drew Lock leaving. That opens up a big hole on the Seahawks, because he could be a one-year wonder. You never know. So they might want to bring in somebody that they think could be a good starter. Now, I'm not super comfortable with this option, but I honestly I couldn't find a spot that I liked for Sam Darnold. And Seattle kind of made sense to me for Sam Darnold to come in and hold a clipboard for a year while he sits back, learns, and hopes next year he gets another shot. I think that makes sense. And Pete Carroll, I think, would absolutely love having Sam Darnold in the back, just in case. And I think Darnold could learn a lot from this offense. They usually have good quarterbacks, like Russell Wilson. I mean, Russell Wilson was really good, but now we're seeing that maybe he was overrated. Maybe it was the system. Who knows? Or maybe he just lost everything. Maybe he's just trash now. I don't know. But Sam Darnold could look really good in this offense. Now, after Darnold, I have them looking at the draft. Let me make sure I got this guy's name right. Yeah, Jake Haener. Now, Jake Haener, he was like the only quarterback in the Senior Bowl that I think upped their stock. The quarterbacks didn't look good in the Senior Bowl. Jake Haener's the only one that looked like he had potential in the NFL, really. And, I think there's a good chance he gets drafted now. And I think Pete Carroll, I'm sure they watch the Senior Bowl, and usually guys that do good in the Senior Bowl get drafted. I think he could see Jake Haener and be like, wow, that guy is my backup for the next 10 years. And I think they could draft Haener in like the 6th, 7th round. He could sit here, learn behind Geno, Sam Darnold in this offense, and then next year, if Darnold leaves, Haener could just come right in as the backup, and I think everyone would be happy there. So that's what I have for Seattle. Next, we move to the LA Rams. Now, obviously, the Rams won the Super Bowl a couple years ago. Last year, very not so much. They were literally, I think, the worst. It was like the worst title defense ever in the NFL, which is unfortunate. Matt Stafford obviously had very serious injuries last year, so much so that they were career-threatening. His wife wanted him to retire. Matt Stafford did not. I think he did think about it, but he said that he's coming back. He's in his later stages. I think he's like 36 now, something like that. So he's up there. He's getting old. I might be wrong on the age. He might be like 34, but still, he's definitely in his 30s. And if he gets injured again, who knows what's going to happen. I could see him hanging it up next year if worse comes to worse. But they have him as their starter right now, and him and Sean McVay are going to want to have a comeback next year. So I think he might come firing out the gate. After him, their backups last year were horrible. After Stafford went down, they were absolute trash. Now, once they got Baker Mayfield, that changed. They were actually capable of winning games again. So they're definitely going to want to re-sign Baker Mayfield, but Baker, like I said earlier, he's going to be looking for. He's just the type of guy that's always going to want to be playing. Like, I don't think he's ever going to want to be a backup. If nobody wants him, I think there's a good chance he just sits in free agency until somebody does or retires. There's guys like that, and I think I'd be really surprised if Baker re-signs on the Rams. Now, he could if really nobody wants him, but I just don't see that happening. I think Baker's gone. So they're going to be looking around, and they're going to want a capable backup. I think both of their guys, Bryce Perkins and Wheaton, Watt, I don't know, whatever their other backup's name is, they're going to be gone. I highly doubt they're getting re-signed. They looked really bad. So I think he's going to bring in a whole new group. Now they do have Mike LaFleur as their new O coordinator. He's coming from the Jets. So I was looking at their quarterback room. They have Joe Flacco is a free agent. I briefly thought about him, but I just don't see him coming in to be a backup for Stafford. I doubt he would want to do that. So after him, we got Mike White. And I was thinking about Mike White, and I think that's perfect. Mike White, he's going to be leaving the Jets. He's going to be looking for an opportunity. Don't think he's going to get one. But I think Rams backup makes a lot of sense for him. And I think LaFleur and McVay would be happy to have him as their backup. And they'd be comfortable with it. After him, McVay, I was looking around, and McVay, I think he needs like a little pet project or something. Like, he won the Super Bowl. I think he got a little bored last year. And he's going to be looking around to find another quarterback he can like train up, teach up, and make good. And I think he's going to see TCU quarterback Max Duggan and see a raw, fiery type of guy that was extremely impressive for TCU, even though he's kind of like a Taylor Heineke type guy. Like, he's not super skilled, but he's not afraid to throw the pigskin around, And I think McVay could see him and be like, wow, I want him on my practice squad as my third quarterback on the roster, whatever. And I honestly don't think he's going to get drafted. I think they could get him in the undrafted free agent pool. But I think he could win that position, and McVay could see Duggan as a guy that could be maybe a backup one day for him, but maybe even start some games one day. I think he would really like Max Duggan. So next, we're going to go to Arizona. I think this is the last team we're going to go over for the NFC. Now, obviously, Arizona reset like their whole staff. They fired Cliff. They fired the GM. They canned everybody. But they still got Kyler Murray, and he's still extremely skilled. He's smaller, obviously, but he's very fast. He can throw the ball. His big problem, I think, is maturity. And I think Cliff did not help with that. Jonathan Gannon, on the other hand, watching his press conference, I'm not really a huge fan of that hire. I don't know if he's ready, but he's definitely confident. He's sure of himself, and I think they're gonna really get Kyler Murray to play their game, and I think that'll be good for him. But they did hire the Browns quarterback coach. He's like the youngest O coordinator in the league now. We'll see how all that works out. I just really am skeptical about the whole thing, but we'll see how it works out. Either way, Kyler Murray is injured. He's probably going to miss at least the first quarter of next year. He might miss the entire first half of next year. So I think they're going to want to bring in another guy to compete with Colt McCoy, who's still on the roster. Because Colt McCoy, the last staff really liked him. Cliff and them, they really liked Colt McCoy, but that doesn't mean Jonathan Gannon and the new coordinator are going to like him. So I think they're definitely going to bring somebody in to battle with him. Plus, McCoy got hurt last year too, so we don't know how he's looking, and he's older. But since the quarterback coach is coming from the Browns, I looked at their roster, and Jacoby Brissett is a free agent. Now, the Browns definitely are going to want Brissett back, but I think Brissett will see this Arizona opportunity and jump. Because if he's on the Browns, he's just going to be Watson's backup. If he's on the Cardinals, he can play like the first half of the year, maybe get some looks. Maybe the next year get a starting gig. You never know. The NFL is crazy like that. Geno Smith is a starter in the league now. Why not Jacoby next year? But yeah, so I have him bringing in Jacoby Brissett, and I think he would beat out Colt McCoy and start a lot of games for Arizona next year. Arizona might also not be good next year, but yeah. So they're going to keep Colt McCoy most likely. They could cut him, but I think they're just going to keep him around at least until Kyler's healthy again, and then they're going to want a third guy, or I guess a fourth guy as well, so that they have three guys ready to go at the beginning of the season. And they had David Blau last year. Why not keep him around? He's a young guy that's pretty active around the league. Teams like him, and he's got a lot of skill. So I think they could keep him around as their third quarterback. I think that's a solid group. So that was the NFC, and I'm gonna make a video probably. It'll probably come out shortly after this one, maybe tomorrow, maybe even later today. But the AFC, we're gonna get going. So if you liked this video, like it, comment on it. Let me know what you liked about it. Let me know if I messed up your team. Let me know if you thought I did good. Let me know what I did wrong in the video, because I'm new to this stuff. So yeah, it was fun. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.